Wow. Just wow. I had a feeling Chihiro was going to lose, but to lose this spectacularly, Hokazono, I truly wasn't familiar with your game.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
This is quite definitely the most defining chapter of Kagurabachi in my humble opinion. This chapter right here resets the status quo. The previous 107 chapters we've been fooled into believing Chihiro will pull through, and chapter 108, Enten versus Magatsumi, serves as a very bleak and stark and dark reminder that Chihiro is still just a boy playing a man's game. Make no mistake about it though, this boy has serious potential. The opening page of this chapter gave us two things in regards to Soga. One, his view on life is very much rooted into samurai ideology, stating to them, life is no more than fuel we burn for our ideal world. If our goals are different, we fight to the death, nothing more. Now, I will swing back around to that point towards the end of the video. Two, at the same time of Soga saying this, he's not really keen on the idea of killing Chihiro purely based on the fact that he is his sister's son, which gives us a small conflict for Soga, if you would like. He obviously wants to fight Chihiro, or is going to fight Chihiro because of his samurai ideology, but he's not quite happy on the idea of potentially having to kill him because he's his sister's son. That in and of itself sort of proves the idea that Soga doesn't really consider Chihiro a samurai. Now, I actually mentioned this in the previous video that Soga was more than likely going to be the one to give us a little bit more insight into Chihiro's mother, who she was and whatnot, and all that kind of good information. And I find it interesting to me that Chihiro seems to have no interest in learning about his mother. He doesn't even react to the information or mention of her finding out that, you know, Chihiro is related to Soga. It's very, very tame reaction, I would say. The possibility to me is arising that Chihiro already knows the fate of his mother, or at least either that or he's so locked in right now in this fight that he can't really afford the distractions. He can't afford to think about his mother. Moving further into the chapter, after this first initial clash of the blades, Soga is seen looking at his blade. The next panel after this, Soga remembers what Chihiro told him just a mere 2 chapters ago, to destroy the enchanted blades. That is the reason the Enten was forged, and Soga is actively feeling that pressure of Enten from this first clash in the very same way that Samura did way back in chapter 83. See how similar these panels are? With both Soga and Samura, they are both users of enchanted blades who have formed a very deep connection to their swords, and comparably, they both noticed the effects of Enten on their swords. Funnily enough though, Samura was convinced that Chihiro wasn't able to break the Magatsumi, only to later crack the Tobimune. And Soga is now in that same situation, and his reaction is essentially the same. He's basically goading Chihiro and telling him, you're trying to do the impossible, you can't do that. The Magatsumi's power is such an overwhelming force that Hokazono depicts this power of the sword encroaching on the life of Samura, depicting this fallen wing on the floor as flowers and plant life spring forth from it. While all of this is happening and Samura's life is being slowly crept upon, he's pouring all of his efforts into healing Chihiro with Suzaku here, declaring that he's making a wager on Chihiro. He's placing his life on that betting table. He's placing all his chips on Chihiro, making good on his promise to say that he will destroy the Shinoichi. Quote, the Enten's ability can dispel the Magatsumi's life-draining power, because the Enten was forged to counter the malediction. It's the only sword capable of taking on the Magatsumi. In an arena dominated by the Shinoichi, he is the only one who dances freely. The second double spread of this chapter, Hokazono depicts the sheer blistering speeds Chihiro and Soga are operating at here, creating after images of strikes and phantoms of block and slices. Chihiro and Soga seem to be evenly matched at this point as they press forward into what is undeniably Chihiro's most pivotal fight within the series so far. Soga himself genuinely reminded me of Madara within this panel. It was as if he couldn't be stopped. He is a force of nature. He isn't just a person that we're aware of. He just is a calamity, if you would like. He is here and we can't stop this. Finally, this little sparring session is brought to an abrupt end with Soga stopping Chihiro in his tracks, firing off a blistering butterfly attack. Aka is barely able to contain the sheer power and force of the Magatsumi strike here. Quote, Aka allows Chihiro to absorb the foe's powers and wield them as his own. Through that process, he discovers how they function. Through these means, Chihiro discovers the true extent of the Magatsumi's power. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Aka says the description of Aka here is allowing Chihiro to absorb these abilities and wield them as his own. Is it temporarily that he can wield these abilities, or is it a one-time use, or can he store these abilities for later on? Because if he can store a multiple of abilities, then that could be even more insanely overpowered. That could be maybe a potential level up of Aka as Chihiro grows stronger with N10. Who knows? But I'm very, very interested to see that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below here. I'm drawing a blank as to whether he can only wield one power at a time or multiple. Apparently, the Magatsumi's power isn't complex. It activates by channeling black energy into various forms. Those forms are infinite in number. Soga's sword is constantly burning away his life force, as he referenced in the opening statements of this chapter, and he burns that life force away to produce this kind of power, while all at the same time stealing the life of others and life forms around him. Consider Magatsumi the ultimate bleed / lifesteal build, if you will. Magatsumi's power is so vast and so intense that Aka can't even fully absorb it, which is just boggling to the mind. Now, if you're familiar with Jujutsu Kaisen and the other series on this channel that I cover, you might have heard of the world slash from Sukuna, a slash that cuts through itself in summary. Soga basically has this exact same thing. There's a few minor differences here, but Soga actually has a world slash of his own, and when Soga slashes, that slash travels through space itself. As a result, there is almost no lag after he swings the blade. And if this attack is even a millimeter off, when it moves through mid to long range distances, the gap grows, making it extremely hard to read. Its slashes are impossible to evade. And this is how it caught Samura in the previous chapters. Now, Chihiro, however, stands above Samura in this regard, because way back in chapter 65, it's revealed that Chihiro's eyes are finely tuned to, due to this bladesmithing that he has done with his dad, forging the Enten essentially. All of that bladesmithing works that he's done with his father, those finely tuned eyes are able to find a life within this battle. Taking the utmost advantage of this, Chihiro evades the strikes and counters with his own. And I think for the first time, potentially in Soga's life here, he's being challenged as a swordmaster. I like to believe that this is the first time this has ever happened to him, that someone has evaded one of his strikes. Chihiro, drawing blood on Soga's cheek, evading the swordmaster's slash, led Samura to declare that Chihiro is a threat to Soga and the Magatsumi. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Chihiro is a boy playing a man's game, and despite his best effort, he is going to be brought down to reality that is cold and crushing, reality that shatters Enten, shatters the dream he and his father poured their all into, shatters everything that Chihiro has done so far within the past 107 chapters. This is essentially a status quo reset, a full rework of the entire series. The whole power dynamic of this series has changed so much so that a couple of chapters ago I was thinking that this felt like the final battle, and realistically all this was just the raid boss at the halfway point of the game. Soga also said that he'd prefer not to kill Chihiro due to his mother, though throughout this battle Chihiro has proven to Soga that he too is a samurai, one willing to burn his life away to stake his claim that his way of life is the right way. And I think during some of these panels here, you get to see a more intense version of Chihiro's spiritual power, more black, more inky, and I wonder if that is, again, Chihiro burning away his life to produce a similar effect of the black lightning that he did in Rakuzaichi. And I believe that Soga cutting Chihiro down in this manner is him showing respect to Chihiro. After all, I think the greatest sign of respect one warrior can give to another is to not hold back. If you are so inclined into this mindset, you have to understand that this person is ready to lay their life down for this fight. And I think Soga is also understanding this of Chihiro. He's willing to lay his life down here and now for this fight. And I think Soga, in turn, is respecting that. And I really enjoy that. However, not all is lost. 10 now lays broken, and the whole dynamic of the series just changed. This is a massive setback for Chihiro. No one can challenge Soga, no one can stop him. He is free to do with the world what he pleases. However, all is not lost. I'd like to cast your minds back to chapter 18, when Cloud Gouger was broken by Chihiro. Cloud Gouger was broken into two pieces, the blade and the hilt. And the hilt is what Chihiro took with him to the Rakuzaichi arc. The hilt is what burnt up its life force, saving him. But there, the blade is still out there. The hilt is gone, but the blade is still there. And in fact, Hokazono, during an interview in Paris in 2024, mentioned that Chihiro still has the other half. I'm placing all of my chips, personally, in the idea that N10 will evolve, molded together with Cloud Gouger, and it'll bring back this beautiful cycle of the first man who ever challenged Chihiro with an enchanted blade, who challenged Chihiro's ideals. The sword that he wielded there and then is the sword that's going to complete N10 once more, forming this nice, beautiful callback. I don't know how Hokazono is going to play it out, but I feel like that's the direction that he's heading towards, and I'm very, very excited for it, because as it stands now, I think we've probably got an extra 100 chapters, maybe more, of Kagurabachi to evolve into here, because hell, man, this is a groundbreaking chapter for the series. Anyways, that is everything from me. If you've not already, please be sure to like and subscribe. Turn on the notifications to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. Support the Patreon. And as always, I will catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.